a good software development process if you're doing everything that you claim to be doing. And we'll look at that in a minute. Logistics, planning and executing test logistics. This is probably when we look at clients that have had problems with automation or with distribution, this is probably one of the biggest issues that comes up over and over again, is just some boring piece of logistics was not properly planned for. I've been on projects where testing was blocked for a month because a server got stuck in customs, and nobody had thought through how we go to the border with money and pay the customs people and get the server out of customs and get it here. Simple stuff, not stuff that takes a lot of time or effort to resolve, but if you don't think about it, it can create a huge obstacle. Planning for and managing the risks. Anytime you distribute work, there's more risk than if you did it co-located. Now, I'm not arguing against doing it. I mean, one of the services that my company provides is outsourcing of testing, so we believe that this can be done effectively, but realistic expectations all around are necessary, and people need to understand that there are risks that arise when you've got people in different time zones and different locations and so forth involved in the testing. There is a need for some amount of face-to-face relationship building and communication that should happen in these situations, so that when things go badly, and eventually, there are always problems on a project, you're not trying to work through a stressful situation with somebody that you don't know and you don't trust. Cultures, if we're doing distributed work, there can often be cultural differences, and you can't solve those. And there's not really anything to solve. It's not that there are problems, it's just that there are differences in culture that can lead to communication problems, probably one of the most frequent things, misunderstandings between people because the ways of expressing yourself can be different in one culture to another. No big deal as long as you understand, okay, this way of communicating works in this culture but not in this one. And then lastly, maintaining focus during execution is very important for distributed testing, that you don't get distracted by the crisis of the moment, the fire drill. Okay, I promised a little more information on CMMi, and just to put this out there right up front, I've got no problem with CMMi. We're working with a client right now to help them do CMMi and integrating test process improvement into the CMMi process, but it doesn't necessarily come for free. And so here's what I mean by that. If we look at this table, there are two kinds of numbers shown in this table. There's italics and boldface, and we basically have two sets of columns. We've got a column that shows the processes, what I'm calling the critical testing processes, and this comes from my book of the same name, and there are 12 of them. And then it has CMMi columns here and here. Now, so how does this work? Well, basically, where there's an italic number that's saying this is the level of CMMi that first starts to deal with or introduces some new element to the dealing with that particular process. Okay? The boldface numbers say this is the point where if somebody's applying CMMi really well, you can assume that this critical testing process is done well. So the short version of this slide is only 5 out of the 12 critical testing processes could you assume were being done well at CMMi level 5, right? So more than half of the processes could be not properly executed. And this is not to cast any stones at CMMi. That CMMi was not designed to deal with testing. Right? It was not. That's not the focus of it. So CMMi can establish a foundation for quality through good software development processes. But if you want to say, am I testing well? That's a separate assessment that you would have to look at. Okay, so why is distributed testing a best practice? What are the benefits of it? The use of lower priced labor, obviously, is the one that we hear about a lot, and And it is certainly a factor, and it is a benefit that can be realized if you do this intelligently. Now, the thing to keep in mind is that we don't want to buy an hour of someone's time. We want to buy a job well done, right? And the thing is, with testing and other parts of the software process, it's very hard to measure that compared to hardware, right? So hardware productivity is really pretty easy to measure. And you say, okay, I got a factory in Malaysia, say, and I'm building CD drives or DVD drives in this factory in Malaysia. Very easy to measure. I can look at my line reject rate. I can look at the time from initial design, delivering the initial design until the first unit comes off the line. I can look at the cost per unit. And this is pretty quantifiable stuff. It's hard to do that with testing because any metric that you might grab onto here tends to kind of twist in your hand on you. Like you say, oh, well, let's look at a cost per bug. Oh, yeah, you could do that, but that's an easily gameable metric. Just file more bug reports. Cost per bug goes down, right? They're crap bug reports, but you know, we got a lot of them, right? Cost per test run. That's another gameable one. Okay, if I want to make my cost per test run go down, one way to do it is just do a sloppy job of running the test and don't pay a lot of attention to the details and just try to get through it as quickly as possible. So you have to be careful about this. I mean, there are ways to do this, but you need to be careful about thinking about, am I really receiving a benefit, a productivity benefit, a cost reduction benefit from doing outsourcing, or is this just I'm paying less per hour, but I'm paying more per job well done? Now, if you've got a situation where development is being done offshore, off-site, then having co-located testing happening ideally with an outside test organization that's providing an independent check and balance on this outside development team, that can reduce the communication time and turnaround time on distributed testing and help make this faster. Use of testers with specialized skills. Now, you know, certainly one of the things that I pride myself on with my company is that we are able to put people, highly skilled people, on projects on demand in various places around the world, have done it on many projects. So that's one of the things that I consider ourselves good at, is delivering the right skills in the right location, filling skills gaps in organizations. Also, test labs with specialized facilities or tools. That can be another benefit of using an outsourced testing organization. Things like compatibility testing and performance testing involve a fairly extensive investment in tools and infrastructure, and maybe there's not a whole lot of value in buying that if you just want to rent it every now and then. Similarly, localization testing. Localization testing is very expensive to build a localization test capability in a country where some of the languages you're trying to cover are hard to find. Now, I'm here in San Francisco right now, and San Francisco is a unique city in this regard in that you probably could find somebody that spoke just about any language in the world here. Similarly, with Los Angeles and New York, you could probably do that. But outside of those few notable exceptions, most places in the world, you know, you're pretty limited to what kind of language localization testing that you could do. And operational localization testing is always a problem. If you want to test with the phone systems or communication infrastructure that's in place in certain countries, there's really no substitute for doing it in that country. So that's another potential advantage of distributed testing. Okay, so what are the next steps? We've gone through 5.